Hello, and welcome to another episode of Essential Zodiac Podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia McNulty.
And I'm Audrey Fannin, podcast producer.
I hope all of you are embracing the summer season. And I know the news has been depressing of late, and you're all probably feeling it a little bit more than usual. And I'll explain all that when we talk about this Cancer new moon. But first, on the same day that we have the new moon, June 28th, Neptune begins its retrograde journey as well. And it will stay retrograde until December 3rd, 2022. Now, the outer planets are always retrograde for months. And actually, Neptune is it can be more beneficial to us in its retrograde orbit than in its direct orbit. Neptune is the planet of delusion and illusion. So it helps us to fool ourselves that our checkbook is in balance and our relationship is just fine, even when, of course, that's not the case. But when Neptune goes retrograde, the veil is lifted, as we say, and you could see the truth that you're terribly overdrawn and your relationship is toxic. So it's a helpful orbit. And like I said, it's going to be retrograde until December. So this gives us a lot of time to look at some of those trouble areas. And we all have them in the back of our head. The ones that we feel in the pit of our stomach. So Neptune is going to poke you and have you take a good hard look at those and, figure out your next course of action. But on the positive side of this as well is Neptune is our planet of intuition, of psychic perception, emotional sensitivities, and they are all good attributes, good energy to have around. As I said, though, right now, Neptune is going to clear away your deceptions, lifts the veil, and removes the mask. And what you want to do is stay true to your feelings and trust your gut. Because Neptune is still, even through the retrograde period, your intuition is going to help you out. And I don't think we listen to our intuition as we should. I mean, pay attention to red flags and that, funny feeling in your stomach. It's your primal body telling you to get away from a predator or a dangerous situation.
That's a thing that it can really take a while to learn to trust your gut and your intuition and those little senses that you're tempted to just say, oh, that's nothing, or oh, I'm imagining things, but they're real, and give yourself the grace to actually recognize them.
That's a great point, Audrey, because you're thinking, and sometimes we're conditioned, society tells us don't make a fuss, you're just too sensitive and all those, negative thoughts and all that we're given. So you're right. It takes a very long time for some of us to trust ourselves, trust our opinion. But Audrey and I are telling you, trust your opinion. Trust that, weird feeling, it's trying to protect you. So now, while we're swimming in Neptune's, waters, what we want to do too is keep a grip on reality. Don't fall into the fantasy mode. Now, it's lovely to have daydreams, dreams, things like that. I mean, that's great. But don't let the fantasy world overtake your real life, because then you could really run into issues. Now, Neptune in retrograde in Pisces is also a good time to look at your spirituality. Is that still working for you? Is it fulfilling? If it's not, it's a good time to look at something new, or if it is, great, you could just maybe even delve a little deeper. Everybody, of course, is going to be affected by Neptune's retrograde period. All of us, it's, one of those outer planets that affects everybody. But some signs will be affected more than others. So for all the mutable signs out there, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, remember Neptune is your ruler, you'll be feeling the transit the most. You may have some existential crisis. I don't know, I didn't say that right.
Oh dear, existential crises.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you, Audrey. Maybe some meltdowns around the direction that you wish to take in the future. My advice is to take a deep breath. Write down, your goals, or write down the obstacles in your way, and work that way, figure out how to check off one obstacle if you have more than one. And, it's a planning period too. Retrogrades are always a planning period. If you can't act, at least get your ducks in the row for when you can. Now, the fixed signs, Taurus, Audrey, our Audrey is a Taurus. Leo, that's me. Scorpio and Aquarius, we won't be feeling this transit as much as the mutable signs. Mutable signs are flexible, fixed signs are stable. So it takes a lot to sometimes ruffle our feathers. But what we will be doing is evaluating our financial and creative direction. So we'll be looking at, how we want to move forward in those areas. And finally, our cardinal signs. They initiate the action. They get things going. The cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn are kind of in a dream state during this retrograde. They're looking for inspiration. So this retrograde period will inspire them to attain their innermost dreams and visions. So you cardinal signs out there, now's the time. You've been thinking about that thing for a long time. So now is the time that you can move forward with it, start planning it, and implement it. So that is pretty cool.
How exciting.
Now, before we go into the new moon information, we're going to take a short pause.
If you want a more detailed look at where Neptune retrograde will land in your chart, email Cynthia at ezpodcast@yahoo.com. That's the letter E, the letter Z, podcast@yahoo.com. Check out Cynthia's specials at essentialzodiac.com and consider becoming a patron of this podcast. Patreon levels start as low as $5 a month, and you'll get perks and some exclusive content.
Thank you, Audrey. Okay, now the new moon in Cancer. So regardless of what your sun or moon signs are, we're all influenced by the new moon or full moon. Now, the new moon in Cancer is a very nurturing kind of energy. The moon is our emotions, how we feel when we're happy, when we're sad, how we love. All is the realm of the moon. The moon rules Cancer. So the moon is very happy in Cancer because it's in its home sign. I call Cancer the mother of the zodiac. And if you have a Cancer friend, everybody goes to that friend for advice, for a shoulder to cry on. They're very nurturing. They're very open and warm. But don't take them for granted or underestimate them, because just like their symbol, the crab, they do have a tough outer shell, but it hides a very vulnerable underside, the underbelly. So if any of you have ever gone crabbing, you know that they are a feisty little creature. I've gone back in my youth. Mr. Essential Zodiac and me, we used to go crabbing because it was a cheap date down the shore. And more than once, Jay and I got nipped by our dinner. So those guys, we kind of figured, well, they're fighting for their life, so we'll throw them back and we'll get them the next time. But so your crab friends, your Cancer friends, that's who they are. I mean, you'll feel more protective during this 2 weeks towards your family, your loved ones, your friends. But do be cautious about becoming overwhelmed by whatever drama that they are experiencing. I mean, be there to be supportive, of course, but make sure that you protect your heart too, because during this Cancer new moon, we can take on that kind of energy, and sometimes that's not so good. So, you will feel a stronger urge to nurture. And that's probably why, we'll be feeling the news. I mean, we've kind of been bombarded, and hopefully that'll be ending soon. But, with that Cancer energy out there, we will feel those kind of situations more. It'll touch us more. So you want to be aware of that. I mean, certainly feel your feelings. We don't want to suppress what we're feeling, but know where it's coming from and why you're feeling the way you're feeling. So your sun sign is the face that you show to the world. Your moon sign is how you feel. And during this new moon, you're going to have very powerful feelings. And also, if you have a natal moon in Cancer, this moon is going to be very significant for you. So what do we do, though? So we have this energy going on around us. We want to nurture. We want to take care of people. We want a resolution, right? So what do we do with all this heavy emotion that we're feeling? Sadness, anger. We don't want to suppress our feelings because that's not healthy. But what can we do? What can we do with all this energy to make us feel better? So I've got 3 little suggestions for everybody out there. And, take these for what you will. Maybe they'll spark an idea of your own. So make a charitable donation that supports the issue you're concerned about. And honestly, having worked with some charities and everything, they don't care. Of course, the big donations are wonderful, but every dollar counts. Even if it's a $5 contribution, they will put it to good use. So try that, or maybe there's other ways to get involved with that particular charity that don't cost anything. Maybe there's walks or telephone call making or whatever. So look into that, and that'll make you feel empowered. Another one is get involved in your local politics in any way you are able. If we want things to change, we have to put people out there that have our best interests at heart and are not beholden to any particular group or lobby or whatever. So again, get involved in whatever level that you can. And finally, the new moon is an optimal time for setting up a sacred space in your home. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. You don't need an entire room. Just a little corner of your bedroom or your office. Cleanse the area. And this is the spot that you can do meditation, manifesting, self-reflection. You could do your journaling here. Make it a cozy little nook that is yours and that you can go to. Get the junk out of the space and your head and, make this a cozy nook for yourself. And the last thing we're going to do, and this information will be appropriate for the next 2 weeks until we go into the full moon. But we're going to pull a Moonology Oracle card. The Moonology deck is by Yasmin Boland, and it comes with the Oracle cards and a guidebook. You can also get a more detailed book too, and I got this through Amazon. And it's very good, very helpful. Now, the card that was pulled is interesting. It's the full moon in Leo. That's the oracle card that we're getting. This is the information that we can use for the next 2 weeks. And when we look at this card, the teaching is when the full moon comes into Leo, it can be wonderfully bright time, where people feel more confident to show the world their talents and assets. So that's very appropriate if you want to support a charity or do any of that political work. Your talents and assets will shine. Now, the downside to this energy is Leo can be prideful. Leo does like to be center stage. So that sometimes is a, unattractive quality. So while we're using this energy to enact things that we would like to change, let's remember to do it with some grace and a little bit of humility. So there you are, my friends. We have come to the end of this episode and the new moon in Cancer. So I hope it has been helpful to you. And remember, with astrology, you can chart your life's course.
Thanks for joining us for the Essential Zodiac podcast. Join us next time when we'll be talking about the full moon in Capricorn. You can find the Essential Zodiac on your favorite podcast sites. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please like, share, and follow our podcast, and do share it with your friends too. Be sure to check out the Essential Zodiac website, essentialzodiac.com. Especially check out the Astro Tarot services. There are 3 brand new spreads to take advantage of. The Essential Zodiac podcast is produced at Muddy Creek Studios.